I sat at my parents' kitchen table, the same maple surface where I'd done homework for 15 years, noticing how the finish had worn away in the spots where our plates always sat. Linda, my mom, busied herself at the stove, periodically glancing at Rick, my dad, who was pouring wine with unusual generosity. "More mashed potatoes, Emily?" Linda asked, her voice pitched unnaturally high. "I'm good," I replied, watching as she heaped a second serving onto Jason's plate without even waiting for his answer. My brother barely noticed, his thumbs tapping furiously on his phone. His wife, Megan, fussed over their 8-year-old son, Ethan, cutting his meat into perfectly equal squares. "Isn't it nice? All of us together on a Tuesday," Linda continued, smoothing her apron as if this was some grand occasion. I nodded, taking a sip of wine to hide my frown. A Tuesday night family dinner with no birthday, no holiday, no reason. The good china on the table. Dad's retirement watch gleaming on his wrist. Mom's pearl earrings, ones I'd only ever seen at church or graduations. Something wasn't right. Jason and Dad exchanged a quick look. Then Linda dropped her fork with a dramatic clatter. "Emily," she said, clearing her throat, "we need to discuss something important about Ethan's future." The air shifted. I set down my glass. Rick slid an official-looking document across the table toward me. Bank letterhead. Loan paperwork. My stomach tightened as I scanned the top page. $40,000 college fund co-signing agreement. "It's just a formality," Jason said, finally setting his phone down. His tone was rehearsed, too smooth, and it made my skin prickle. "The bank needs a second signature with solid credit. Someone responsible." The so-called compliment landed hollow. I flipped to the second page. My name was already typed into the cosigner field. "You finally have that bonus money," Linda added, reaching for my hand across the table. Her eyes glistened with tears that looked all too practiced. Family helps family. Cold realization bloomed in my chest. This dinner wasn't spontaneous at all. The invitation, the fancy setting, the unusual Tuesday, it had all been a calculated ambush. They'd been planning this for weeks. I glanced at Ethan, who was innocently pushing peas into neat patterns on his plate, completely unaware that he was the emotional pawn in tonight's game. Suddenly, the kitchen dissolved around me, replaced by the fluorescent lights of Palmer's Pharmacy 12 years earlier. 16-year-old me, counting pills into bottles after school while other kids went to football games. My textbooks spread on the break room table during my 30-minute dinner, cramming for AP exams that might earn me scholarships. My parents had never once come to my science competitions. But Jason's football games? They'd worn custom sweatshirts with his jersey number on the back. The day my full-ride acceptance letter arrived, Linda had glanced up from preparing Jason's favorite dinner and muttered, "That's nice, dear. Could you set the table?" 2 months later, they threw Jason a college send-off party with 50 guests. I celebrated my scholarship alone with a single cupcake from the bakery where I'd worked summer shifts. The memory snapped as Rick tapped the paper with his index finger, pulling me back to the present. "The interest rate is reasonable," he said firmly, "and Ethan's future depends on this foundation." My throat tightened. I need time to think about this." Jason's jaw clenched. "The bank appointment is already scheduled for Thursday." "Thursday?" My voice rose. "That's 2 days from now. After everything we've done for you," Linda interjected, dabbing at her eyes with a napkin. I almost laughed. "Done for me?" I'd paid my own way through college with scholarships and part-time jobs. I'd shouldered $60,000 in student loans, which I had finally paid off just last month. Not once had I needed a cosigner. Not once had they offered. Rick leaned forward, his voice dropping into that commanding tone he had always used when I broke curfew as a teenager. "This is what family does, Emily." "Excuse me," I muttered, pushing my chair back. "Bathroom." I locked the door behind me, gripping the cool edge of the sink and splashing water on my face. In the mirror, my grandmother's eyes stared back at me. Gran, the woman who had raised 3 kids alone after Grandpa died, who had taught me to stand tall when it would have been easier to shrink. "Your life belongs to you first," she used to whisper when I cried about Jason getting the bigger bedroom, the newer bike, the louder praise. My hands trembled as I dried my face. They expected me to walk back out there and sign away my financial future. For a nephew whose college fund should have been his parents' responsibility. For a brother who had never once helped me. For parents who only saw me as the reliable backup plan, I straightened my shoulders, feeling grand strength flow through my spine. Thursday's bank appointment was already on their calendar, but my answer didn't have to be the one they'd scripted. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds of my apartment, cutting sharp lines across the floor. I sat at my laptop, untouched coffee cooling beside me. My chest still carried the weight of last night's ambush. I opened my company benefits portal, something I rarely did outside of work. At first, I was just trying to distract myself. But then I froze. Account access, 6:42 p.m. Tuesday. The system logged every single login and I hadn't been anywhere near it at that time. Someone else had accessed my account. My heart began to hammer. I leaned closer to the screen. The IP address didn't match mine. Cold realization spread through me. Yesterday, hours before our casual family dinner, someone had looked up my bonus details. That I grabbed my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and tapped a number I hadn't used in years. 3 rings later. Accounting department, Sylvia speaking. Hi, Sylvia. It's Emily Carter. Quick question. Does Kathy Moore's daughter still work in IT? There was a pause. Lisa? Yes, she does. But why? I forced a casual tone. Just checking. Thanks. I hung up before she could ask more. Lisa Moore. My mother's best friend's daughter. The woman who sent Linda birthday cards every year. The woman who, conveniently, worked in IT security. They had known exactly how much I got in my bonus. Down to the dollar. I pulled up my bank statement, my pulse spiking. There it was. $15,200 deposited last Friday. The exact figure Mom had tossed out so casually over dinner time. My phone buzzed. Jason. His 5th call since I'd walked out last night. I let it go to voicemail, then opened my muted family group chat. Scrolling back weeks, my stomach dropped. Jason, she just got her bonus. Mom, Linda confirmed amount. Dad, Rick, dinner strategy still on for Tuesday. Jason, perfect. She won't see it coming. My hands shook so violently I had to set the phone down. This wasn't a family dinner. It had been a heist meeting with pot roast. Anger burned low and steady, but underneath it was something colder. Betrayal. Not just from Jason. Not just from Mom and Dad. But from the entire circle they'd pulled into this charade. The walls of my apartment seemed to close in, memories pressing from every angle. I yanked open my closet and pulled out a worn cardboard box I had carried with me from apartment to apartment. Inside, beneath yellowed yearbooks and forgotten trinkets, lay my old childhood diary with the broken lock. I flipped through the pages, and the words hit harder now than they ever had when I wrote them. May 15th. Mom and Dad bought Jason a car for graduation. They gave me a card with $50. September 3rd. Missed my science competition because Jason had a scrimmage. Dad said, there'll be other competitions. December 25th. Jason got the new computer. I got clothes for school. Page after page of favoritism that I had minimized, writing in smaller and smaller handwriting as though I could shrink myself out of the story. To the bottom of the box sat a folder of loan documents. Every single one bore only my name. No co-signers. No safety nets. No family helps family. My phone rang again. Jason. Against my better judgment, I answered. What? My voice cracked with fury. You need to stop being difficult, he said, skipping even a hello. Mom's been crying all morning. I'm not signing those papers. Family helps family, Emily. What would Gran say if she saw you being so selfish? The mention of my grandmother made my blood boil. Don't you dare use Gran against me. She taught me to stand on my own 2 feet, something you never learned. Jason's voice faltered but pressed on. Look, Ethan needs this. It's his future. Then why can't you or Mom and Dad co-sign? Why me? His pause told me everything. Because your credit score is better, he admitted finally. Dad's retirement affected theirs, and Megan and I have the house mortgage. So I was just the backup plan. You're being dramatic, Jason said, his tone sharpening. Dad says you're embarrassing the family. People at church are asking questions. The doorbell rang. I peeked through the peephole. Megan, perfectly styled as always, standing there with a polite, expectant smile. I have to go, I muttered, hanging up. Before I could decide whether to open the door, my phone chimed again, this time a work email. From HR. Hi Emily, is everything all right? We received a concerning call from a relative about your difficult time. I nearly dropped the phone. They were calling my workplace now. The doorbell rang again, more insistent. I ignored it, gathering my things for work. Later that morning at the office, Pat Evans from the research lab dropped into the chair beside my desk. At 62, she'd seen it all, her salt and pepper curls framing a face that didn't tolerate nonsense. "You look like you haven't slept," she said, sliding a coffee toward me. "Family troubles?" I hesitated. "How did you know?" "Your brother called the front desk asking about you," Pat said flatly. "Something about a family emergency. I told reception you were in a meeting all day." Relief flooded me. "Thank you." "Listen," she leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "My sister tried the same thing after our father died. Wanted me to mortgage my house to save hers. People who use family as a weapon don't deserve your sacrifice." Her words sank into me like stone into still water. My phone buzzed again. A text from Rachel, my best friend. "Just checking in. Want to grab dinner tonight?" Before I could respond, Jason's name flashed on my screen. "Emily, we need to talk. I already spent some of the college fund money on." I declined the call, my heart pounding. He had already spent money that didn't even exist. Moments later, my desk phone rang. "Hello, Emily. This is Mark Jenkins from First Federal. I'm calling about the family account your father mentioned." I hung up, my hands shaking. That evening, my mother's number appeared again. For the first time in my adult life, I declined a family dinner invitation. "I can't make it tonight," I said firmly. "Or Thursday." "Emily Carter," Linda's voice broke through the line. "You're breaking your father's heart." I ended the call and stared at my hands. They weren't trembling anymore. For the first time in a long time, they were steady. Sunday morning, the church bulletin board loomed before me in its cheerful script. Family news, answered prayers, community announcements. I had barely stepped through the heavy oak doors when Uncle Roger appeared at my elbow. "There's my favorite niece," he boomed, clamping his hand on my shoulder. "Your mother tells me you're having trouble understanding family obligations." Before I could reply, Aunt Cheryl slid in on my other side, her perfume sharp as lilacs in bloom. "Ethan is such a bright boy," she said, shaking her head. "It would be a shame if his potential went to waste because of pride." I forced a smile, trying to step away, but every time I moved, another relative emerged. Each one delivered a rehearsed argument, as though they'd all agreed on a script. Even Pastor Miller cornered me near the hymnal shelf, his deep voice laced with solemnity. "The good book tells us family comes first, Emily. Your parents have prayed about this matter extensively. Prayers about my bank account. How convenient." By the time coffee hour ended, I was dizzy from deflecting. It didn't stop there. Monday, a crisp white envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single line typed in bold. "Ungrateful daughters burn in hell." I dropped the paper as if it had scorched my skin. That night, Jason called again, his voice thick with practiced tears. Ethan asked why Aunt Emily doesn't love him enough to help with college. My 8-year-old nephew, suddenly concerned about higher education financing. I clenched the phone. "Don't put those words in his mouth, Jason. You're ruining his future," Jason pushed. "No," I said flatly. "You are. You already spent money that doesn't exist." The line went dead. By Tuesday afternoon at Hannaford's grocery, even Mrs. Peterson, who'd known me since kindergarten, took her shot. She eyed the contents of my cart. Frozen dinners, fresh vegetables, a bottle of red, and sniffed. "Some people remember where they came from," she muttered loudly enough for other shoppers to hear. The humiliation burned hotter than anger, but the final straw came Wednesday when Rick himself showed up at my workplace reception desk. His retirement watch gleamed under fluorescent lights as he told the receptionist with the old authoritative tone that once sent me scurrying to my room, "I need to speak with my daughter. Family emergency." I met him in the lobby, arms crossed. "This is inappropriate, Dad." "What's inappropriate?" Rick shot back, his voice carrying across the atrium for all my coworkers to hear. "Is abandoning your family when they need you. Thursday, 10 o'clock. The loan officer is expecting us." The echoes of his words followed me all the way home. That night, I lay on my couch staring at the ceiling, calculating how many hours remained until Thursday morning. I felt trapped, as though the walls themselves were closing in. Then, at 9:17 p.m., my company email pinged. Subject: biomedical research position, San Francisco branch expansion. Qualified internal candidates encouraged to apply immediately. I blinked. My heart gave a jolt. The job description matched my skills perfectly. Grant writing, project coordination, lab reporting. And the location? 3,000 miles away. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Pat Evans. Did you see the posting? Application deadline Friday. Your experience with the Carlton project makes you perfect. I sat up. Adrenaline washing through me. A door. A way out. For the first time in days, I breathed deeply. I could almost feel the California sun on my skin, the ocean breeze untangling the knots in my chest. That night, while my family slept in their comfortable suburban homes, I sat hunched over my laptop. I updated my resume, crafted a cover letter, and typed furiously into the midnight hours. Hit submit at 12:03 a.m. Sleep never came, but neither did dread. For the first time in weeks, I felt something entirely different. Thursday morning dawned bright in Boston, but I wasn't there to see it. While my family dressed for their carefully scheduled bank appointment, I was already 30,000 feet in the air, somewhere over the Midwest, sipping burnt airplane coffee. My seatbelt clasp clicked like a lock on the past. Flight 1422. One way to San Francisco. The night before, I'd packed with quiet efficiency. Essentials went into 2 suitcases, the rest stored in Rachel's garage under the cover of work overflow. My elderly neighbor Harry Thompson agreed to collect my mail. Had to escape my own brother's schemes back in '82. He confided as I handed him my spare key. Sometimes distance is the only language they understand. By the time the plane lifted through Massachusetts clouds, the weight of 30 years of obligation fell away. I breathed deeper with every mile west. When we landed, the California sunshine felt unreal, as though I'd stepped into a different life altogether. I checked into a modest hotel where I'd stay until the new lease began Sunday. The Pacific light poured through the unfamiliar curtains, and for the first time my hands weren't trembling. I powered on my phone. The barrage was immediate. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, 5 voicemails. The first voicemail was Linda, her voice trembling. Emily, where are you? Everyone's waiting. Please call immediately. The second was Rick, clipped and authoritative. This is unacceptable behavior. Call now. By the fifth, Jason's voice had shifted from irritation to panic. If you're doing what I think you're doing, there will be consequences. Legal consequences. I let the phone fall onto the bed and reached for the room service menu. My freedom tasted like black coffee and a Denver omelet. Halfway through breakfast, a new message popped up from Mom. We've contacted the police. You're officially a missing person. My heart jolted. But before panic could take hold, my work email pinged. HR had anticipated this. They've escalated to missing persons, just as we thought. Don't worry. We blocked their information requests. Your employment status is confidential. Relax. Enjoy California. I almost laughed. They could call me selfish, ungrateful, dramatic. But missing? No. I wasn't missing. I was found. Still, I knew I couldn't let their version of the story dominate. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, even a few close family friends. Attached were screenshots. Jason texting, dinner strategy still on for Tuesday. Rick confirming your mother's making her favorite meal. Linda acknowledging the exact amount of my bonus, numbers she couldn't have known without breaching my account. I laid it out clearly. The ambush, the access to my records, the plan to trap me. Then I hit send. Hours later, the first ripples returned. A message from Jessica. Jason's wife, I understand why you left. He does this to everyone. Be safe. Another from Uncle Frank, Dad's older brother. Not surprised. Bank called me about Jason's previous loan applications after your no-show. Things unraveling here. Support came in unexpected waves. Rachel confirmed to my frantic mother that I was safe but needed space. Pat Evans texted. Office gossip shut down. Your replacement story is holding. Enjoy the sunshine. Even Harry Thompson left a note in Rachel's mailbox. Told them she moved on legally, properly. They left disappointed. Meanwhile, I sat on my hotel balcony, sipping coffee while the Pacific stretched endless before me. 3000 miles of distance had accomplished what years of conversations never could. Freedom. Of course, the phone kept buzzing. Each new voicemail was another attempt. Rick demanding, Linda weeping, Jason threatening. But I no longer jumped at the sound. Their voices were background noise to the hum of San Francisco traffic below my window. I thought of Gran, her words etched in memory. Your life belongs to you first, and for the first time I believed it that night as my family gathered in a Boston bank lobby checking their watches, growing increasingly irritated by my absence. I was halfway through a bowl of clam chowder at Fisherman's Wharf. The air was cool, the lights reflecting off the bay, and my smile stretched wider than it had in years. They had planned an ambush. But I had planned an escape. And mine had worked. By the third month in California, the harassment hadn't stopped, it had simply changed shape. There were letters in the mail with no return address. Ungrateful daughters burn in hell. There were phone calls at work, neighbors back in Boston telling my new supervisor about my concerning behavior. There were tearful voicemails from Linda, clipped commands from Rick, and guilt-soaked pleas from Jason. But what broke me wasn't their persistence. It was the pattern. First came the letter about Mom collapsing, except when I called the hospital there was no patient by her name. Then came a supposed notice from a law firm in Massachusetts I couldn't find anywhere in the state registry. Then Jason's latest call. Mason doesn't understand why his aunt abandoned him. Enough that I decided it was time to flip the script. On Monday, I sent out one email. Family video call. Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Everyone together. The responses came almost instantly. Linda's tearful acceptance. Rick's stern, "We'll be there." Jason's smug finally. Thursday evening, the sun was sinking gold over the Pacific when I positioned my laptop carefully on my desk. Behind me hung my frame degrees, my certifications, and most important, Gran's letter in a simple black frame. Nothing else. No family photos. No distractions. At exactly 7 p.m., I clicked join meeting. Their faces filled my screen like a gallery of ghosts. Rick at the head of the kitchen table, arms crossed. Linda beside him, tissues already in hand. Jason and Megan, with Ethan visible in the background, bouncing nervously in his chair. Even Pastor Miller, 2 church elders, and Aunt Cheryl had joined. Emily, Rick began, his voice thick with authority. We've gathered as a family to discuss your concerning behavior and I'll be speaking first. My voice cut cleanly across his, steadier than I'd ever heard it. I have prepared remarks and evidence that requires your full attention. Linda started to protest, but Rick raised a hand. Curiosity outweighed control. For the moment, I took a deep breath and clicked share screen. 3 months ago, I began. You ambushed me with loan papers demanding I co-sign $40,000 for Ethan's future. Since then, you've escalated to increasingly desperate tactics. I've documented everything. Jason scoffed. This is ridiculous. We're just trying to secure our son's future. And you're treating us like criminals. Really? I clicked to the next slide. Screenshots of the group chat. She just got her bonus. Mom confirmed amount. Dinner strategy still on for Tuesday, I continued calmly. You told First National Bank the loan was for Ethan's education. But I have you on record telling your poker buddy something very different. I pressed play on the audio file. Jason's unmistakable voice filled the speakers. Emily's bonus is exactly what I need to clear the tables. Once she signs, I'll worry about Mason's college later. The silence was physical. Megan's head snapped toward Jason. Even Ethan looked confused, staring at his father. I didn't pause. Slide after slide. Bank statements proving Rick and Linda had sufficient assets to guarantee the loan themselves. Loan history showing I had paid $60,000 of student debt alone. Diary entries documenting favoritism since childhood. Finally, I clicked to the last page. This isn't about Mason. This is about a pattern. Jason receives. I provide. From bedrooms to birthdays to tuition. Always one-sided. Always justified as family. Aunt Cheryl's voice broke the stillness. Rick, is this true? That Emily paid her own way while Jason had everything covered. Rick's jaw tightened, but his silence was louder than denial. I sat up straighter. My financial decisions are not family property. So here are my terms. The kitchen behind them was so quiet I could hear the wall clock ticking. No contact for 6 months. After that, we can reassess based on everyone's behavior. Any attempt to manipulate me, to contact my workplace, or to involve outsiders resets the clock. Rick opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time in my life, he had no words. Behind the anger in his eyes, I saw something else flicker. Respect, or maybe just fear of losing his grip. Jason shot to his feet. "This is bull." His voice cut off as he stormed away from the camera, the screen shaking with his exit. Megan didn't follow. Linda leaned toward the camera, her hand reaching as though she could touch me across 3,000 miles. "Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't see what we were doing." It was the first genuine apology I had ever heard from her. 6 months, I repeated firmly. "Your move." Then I clicked leave meeting. The silence in my California apartment felt different this time. Not heavy, not suffocating. It was the silence after a storm passes, the kind that smells like clean air and wet earth. I leaned back in my chair, my hands steady, my breath calm. For the first time in decades, I wasn't reacting to them. I was dictating the terms. The morning after that video call, I woke to California sunlight streaming through my apartment windows. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up bracing for the next demand, the next ambush, the next guilt trip. The silence was warm. It was mine. Over the next few weeks, messages from Boston slowed. The first trickle came from Linda, short, hesitant letters written in her neat looping script. "I never realized how differently we treated you and Jason," she admitted once. "Another time, I thought we were protecting family. Now I see we were draining you instead." Her words were clumsy but, for once, honest. Rick was less direct. He sent brief texts about the weather, Red Sox scores, and once even asked about my new job. Not apologies, not acknowledgments, just small steps across a wide gulf. It was something, but it was on my terms now. Jason, on the other hand, spiraled. Rachel forwarded me news from Boston. Foreclosure notices, missed payments, whispers of gambling debts catching up. Megan quietly rebelled. She brought Ethan to visit me once during a quick trip west, without telling Jason. The boy's eyes widened at the California coastline, and I promised him that someday, when he was older, he'd see more. That promise led me to open a small savings account in Ethan's name. Not as an obligation, not as hush money, but as a gift. On his 16th birthday, I'll give him a note. "Your future is yours to build. Support should come freely, not through pressure or guilt." In the meantime, I rebuilt my life. At work, my new colleagues welcomed me without questions. They celebrated my promotion with real champagne. Not the grocery store sparkling wine my parents once served Jason when he got his first job. My boss trusted me, my team respected me, and Pat Evans, now retired, sent postcards from her road trip across the Southwest. Outside of work, I began volunteering at a women's financial literacy program. Week after week, I sat across from women who sounded like me, tired, drained, cornered by family obligations. Teaching them about credit scores, savings plans, and saying no without guilt felt like redemption. That's where I met Eric, a curriculum developer with an easy smile and a quiet respect for boundaries. His hand in mine never felt like a chain, it felt like an invitation. We took things slow. After years of demands and manipulation, slow was exactly what I needed, and my apartment became a sanctuary. Friends gathered around my dining table for Thanksgiving. Rachel flew in, Pat made a stop during her retirement tour, Ellie from downstairs brought homemade pies, and even my elderly neighbor Harry Thompson joined via video call. We toasted not to family by blood, but to the family we choose. On my desk, framed between my degrees, hangs Grand's letter in her careful handwriting. "Your life belongs to you first." It no longer sits hidden in a drawer. It's displayed proudly, a compass I live by. Therapy sessions twice a month helped me understand the scars. The golden child versus scapegoat dynamic wasn't my creation, nor my responsibility. Recognizing that truth freed me from carrying shame that was never mine. 6 months passed faster than I expected. When the time came, I didn't restart contact with my parents. Not yet. Maybe one day if they showed real change. But for now, my peace mattered more. On the 1-year anniversary of my move, I bought a single cupcake, just like the one I once ate alone to celebrate my scholarship. Except this time, I lit a candle not for survival, but for freedom. As I stood on my balcony overlooking the Pacific, the waves roaring below, I realized something profound. Freedom isn't the absence of family. It's the presence of choice. I chose myself. I chose boundaries. I chose a life where love is not measured in signed papers or drained accounts but in respect freely given. And for the first time, I knew Gran would be proud.